The US just admitted that the dollar system is breaking. Scott Bessent called out the IMF and the World Bank, laying out a roadmap of how to fix the global financial system. But if you're paying attention, it doesn't sound like how to fix the current system. It sounds like an admission that the current system is breaking, that the dollar's hold on the world is slipping, and that the US is trying to rewrite the rules and regain control before it all falls apart.
Our move toward reordering the financial trading system is a start.
But if you and I are playing their game and they're rewriting the rules, how can we possibly trust that the financial system that holds our savings, our retirement, our financial future is going to survive this transition? So what exactly did Scott Bessent say in his speech to the IMF? What do we think the next moves are going to be? And most importantly, how does all of this impact you and your financial future? Let's get into it. In case you missed it yesterday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the IMF and the World Bank falling short as he calls for rebalancing of the international financial system. Now, let's call a spade a spade. Rebalancing of the international financial system, a reset of the international financial system. That's what I hear, that's what I read, but we'll talk more about a reset in a minute. First, let's look at what he actually said. Now, he called them out and said they were guilty of mission creep, essentially getting away from their originally intended purpose and focusing too much on things like climate change or other policy instead of the world economy. But it's funny, if you ask me, I mean, there is no regulation, there is no oversight, right? You and I don't have a say in who runs these operations. In case you're not familiar, the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, they're essentially these global elite institutions that have tremendous control over every single component of our life, right? They pull the strings at a level that we're not even familiar with. The thing that hurts the United States, however, is that the US helped create these organizations back when the Bretton Woods Agreement was created. Essentially, these were supposed to help keep everyone in order for a Western-led, Western-dominated, dollar-dominated system. But of course, a lot has changed since that agreement was first put in place, right? I applaud Scott Bessent for calling them out. I applaud him for going in there and saying, hey, we need to go back. But if we are going to go back to the way things were, which I don't think we are, but if we're even going to get close, well, then gold has to play a role in this, right? We can no longer have trust in the dollar the way we once did back when these organizations were created, because there is no trust in fiat currency. They have proven time and time again that they will do everything they can to destroy the dollar and destroy our purchasing power. But back to Bessent, I want to be crystal clear. He didn't go up there talking about dollar collapse or waving a flag saying the dollar was done. But again, if you read or listen to what he's really saying, you can hear that the current system, the U.S. Treasury Secretary is saying the system is broken, the system that relies on dollars. He said specifically that the Trump administration is eager to work with them, the IMF and the World Bank, so long as they can stay true to their missions. Basically, so long as they continue to support the United States and the dollar as the global reserve currency, and really the dollar-based system, period, point blank, because we know that the IMF has been getting closer to China, something that is not lost on the current administration, right? Especially with all the trade war tensions going on. But I would not put it past the IMF. Just because they were born out of a Western alliance and out of the United States does not mean that they have loyalty, blind loyalty to the end, to the dollar, especially as we continue to see a global shift away from the dollar. Now, do I think that this is going to happen overnight? No, but do I feel like this is once again just further proof that things are escalating, that the United States is losing its grip? Yes, I do. Now, to give, again, Bessent props on something that he talked about. He said America first does not mean America alone. Why would he say that? Some people online were saying he was backpedaling, right? Trying to kind of play both sides in terms of tariffs and trade war. But I think, again, this is actually a smart thing to say, because he essentially needs to make sure that trade continues to happen regardless of tariffs, because isolation and no trade means less dollars. Less dollars traded. What is the United States' biggest export? It is dollars. So if trade were to stop, that is a serious problem for the United States, especially at this pivotal moment when it has become crystal clear that the entire world is not as reliant on the dollar as maybe people thought. Maybe people in power, assumed, the way a lot of people do, that the dollar is king because it's always been that way. But we have seen over the years a continual decline in dollar dominance, something that is not going to stop anytime soon. But there is one line here that really gets to the heart of what I think is coming next potentially, and it says we must make the IMF again. I read that, the subtext there, as we must make the dollar again. But how can you possibly make something again if it's completely different from what it was originally, right? If the dollar was originally backed by gold, not saying it's the same as gold. I am obviously not a proponent of fiat currency, but let's say you have this dollar over here that's backed by gold, and you have the dollar today that's backed by nothing, or the full faith and trust and credit of the US government. Okay, they are not the same. You cannot make this again. You cannot make the IMF again unless you go back to what it was. Is this a clue that we are returning to potentially a gold-backed currency of some kind? Again, it's not outright. It's not what he said. I'm not trying to connect dots that aren't there, but ultimately, we know that Scott Bessent is a proponent of gold. We know that President Trump is a proponent of gold, and we understand that they are doing what they can to try and position the dollar back to where it was. But if we are going to get back to a position of power, there has to be some kind of trust in the currency. Now, do I think that's going to happen overnight again? No. Do I think that there's a lot more pain to happen first? Do I think that they're going to squeeze everything they can out of the current currency before they move to some kind of gold system? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I do believe that gold is going to be at the center of this next reset, this revaluation. What did he call it? A rebalancing of the international financial system. Absolutely, because there has to be some way to restore trust. Otherwise, none of this is going to work. And he understands that. I understand that. You understand that. So ultimately, again, all of these signals to me just point to the fact that we are accelerating through this currency life cycle, and that it is time to prepare. If you are not prepared already, I talk about physical gold and silver all the time. I always say, I'm like, of course, we sell physical gold and silver here at ITM Trading, but even if you don't buy it from us, I just highly encourage that everyone has it, that you get protected, that you get in a position now, because those who are stuck in the old system, when the transition happens, when the reset comes, you are going to be the ones who lose everything. But if you are prepared now, if you get in place now, if you have a strategy for what's coming next, not only will you protect your wealth, but you will automatically be set up for success on the other side of this reset. And that is my wish for everyone. Now, if you're looking for more resources or you want to learn more about gold, absolutely, we have created a free ITM gold and silver guide. Highly recommend everyone download it. You can do it by scanning the QR code. There's also a link in the description below that you can click and get your free guide today. Or if you have more questions or you want to understand how we can help you prepare, you can call us at the number below or click the link in the description and set up a time that works best for you. And in the meantime, as always, I so appreciate you being here. I'm Taylor Kenney with ITM Trading, your trusted source for all things gold, silver, and lifelong wealth protection. Until next time.